following the leak of the ANC's national candidate list yesterday, the Independent Electoral Commission says it has instituted measures to deal with this matter. On the very same day, the MK party's national and regional lists were also leaked. ANC party president Cyril Ramaphosa says he still has faith in the electoral system and the party supports it 100%. However, as the list circulated online, many expressed concerns about some of the candidates on that list, many of which are embroiled with corruption and wrongdoing. Let's discuss this now and, of course, get a sense of what it means about the types of leaders these parties have put forward and, importantly, whether there's a common goal to get rid of corruption in the public office and accountability. Professor Zwelinzima Ndevu, very good morning to you. Joining us to expand, he's from the Stellenbosch School of Public Leadership, weighing in on this matter. Very good morning to you. Thank you for your time. President Ramaphosa has reacted, slamming this candidate list, arguing it demeans the IEC process, and on the other end, of course, the IEC taking full accountability and responsibility for this leak. What impact do you think this leak now has on the issue of credibility?
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to your listeners. I think it is important for one to have trust, to have the institutions such as IEC to have credibility. And if there is information that leaks from such institution, which is not officially issued by the institution, bring the credibility of the institution into disrepute. And I think many people would then ask whether this institution can be trusted to run a free and fair, a credible election. So while one appreciates the manner in which they have dealt with this issue, but one thinks or hopes that going forward, they will have to ensure that events of this nature, leaks of this nature, do not come out of the IEC, and because that would bring the credibility of the elections into effect, and people will question whether they have the capabilities to run a free and fair election, an election that is credible.
Now, of course, the leaked lists revealed that the ANC has essentially broken its own rule, what we discovered because of it, and they're putting some red-flagged members on the list, the likes of Malusi Gigaba, David Mahlobo, and so forth. What message do you think this sends, more so because of the distrust of the governing party?
I think one would have hoped, because the ANC has been reiterating over time that they are going to ensure that they put credible leaders, they put leaders that do not have any shade of doubt in terms of their characters and all of that. One would have hoped, because this would be probably the most important elections after the 1994 elections, ANC would have put only leaders with credibility, only leaders that have not been found to be unethical or acted in a manner that is not becoming of a public leader. And once we all see that there are still these leaders, one is a bit disappointed, firstly. One is not sure whether President Ramaphosa's message of ensuring that he would bring a clean governance, he would bring leaders that are clean, is a message that one can trust.
Just before you answered this question, you touched a little bit on the IEC's credibility, the impact of the candidate leaks. And as I read the Sunday Times, it says that the DA is asking powerful Western countries such as the US and the UK to make resources available to bolster the deployment of independent domestic election observers ahead of the May 29 vote. And the move has now been slammed by the ANC. What does this tell us?
I think this tells us to a certain degree that certain political parties are starting to distrust the IEC. We know that we've also had the MK party saying just earlier on whether we have a credible elections, would we have free and fair elections, would we have transparent elections. The DA is following suit in that. Normally, it is not political parties that would request independent international observers, but it will be the IEC itself. But it would seem that these political parties don't trust the credibility of the IEC to do that, or to do that objectively. And that brings a lot of question as to whether would the outcomes of the elections be accepted by the political parties as a true reflection of the views and the preference of the majority of the people or not.
Absolutely. Now, regarding some of the names that have been red flagged on the candidate list, we know that In reaction to this, the ANC top 7 has flagged these senior members who should be removed from the list. But it's reported that the majority of the party's NEC committee members believe that steps to have these members removed from the parliamentary list should be halted, well, at least for now. What do you make of that idea?
It is very disappointing from one, especially if you look at it from a distance. I'm not sure what would be the reason that they advance for that. But because you would want, if you go to an election and you have a list of candidates, you want candidates that are ethical, candidates that have credibility, have character of upstanding. And I don't know how would you take candidates that have challenges, have their names being suspected of being involved in acts of corruption, acts of unethical behavior, acts of bad governance, being included in a list and think that you are going to then win an election with that. In a normal democracy, that would signal a party that does not take the interest of the communities into regard when they go to elections. So I'm not sure about the wisdom of that. But for an ordinary person, it would say the ANC is not serious about dealing with corruption. The ANC is not serious with taking out bad elements within itself.
Would you regard it as a blatant disregard for the voter and the public? Because, I mean, the ANC has spoken very strongly about corruption, but speaking with no action really doesn't amount to much.
Yes, it would seem like a party that is really taking the interests of the people for granted, a party that is complacent and thinking that people would vote it again without question. And that really is looking at the voters as people that would just follow whatever the leaders are saying. But I think in these elections, many commentators have indicated that these would be decisive elections because people are tired of issues of corruption. We have hoped that Ramaphosa and his leadership will start dealing with that, and it is disappointing that they are not dealing with that.
Yeah, because disgruntled members are now counting on Ramaphosa to intervene. What are the chances of that intervention, given what we've seen in the past when Ramaphosa has to intervene in the heat of the moment?
I think for me, it might be very late for him to intervene if the list hasn't submitted with the names of those people, because it would seem that in the ruling party, the majority rules even in the National Executive Committee, which means that President Ramaphosa has very limited influence on the decisions that are taken. So I would not put my hope on him intervening even at a later stage. Nothing might happen really to deal with those leaders, especially after the elections when they would have received the vote, because there's nothing that would change the votes after that.
What does this now expose when it comes to the deep divisions that we've seen, observers, of course, within the ANC, and the matter around factions?
It would seem that President Ramaphosa still does not have full control of the party. One would have hoped after the election, the national conference that they had, President Ramaphosa's faction or people that support him would have taken full control of the party, and we know that to be people that are want clean governance, who are leaders of upstanding, but it would seem that they don't have full control. And that means President Ramaphosa as well does not have full control of the party, and that compromises him a bit as a leader who does not have full control of the party.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Zwelinzima Ndevu with the Stellenbosch School of Public Leadership, just weighing in on the back of the reaction around the candidate lists which were leaked by the IEC, the ANC's candidate list.